The AK-12, basically a larger version of the AKS-74 that we already have in the game, firing 5.45 by 39 ammo, so a smaller caliber than the basic AKM. Now this weapon is one that you unfortunately don't see a whole lot of in Delta Force, and I myself didn't really use it before actually attempting to make a build for it, but man, did I build something that just feels so good to fire, especially at longer ranges. It feels chunky, it feels good, you can beam people at decent ranges, and yeah, overall very pleased with how this weapon performs in Delta Force. And in today's video we're going to go over the build that I have for all of you today. So as usual, starting off with a blank slate here. So this weapon does have a lot of recoil, as you can see here, quite a bit of vertical recoil, making it a little bit difficult to handle. Even though it is vertical recoil, it has so much of it that it can be a pain to handle, so we're going to try and correct some of that. So the first thing you're going to do is swap out the barrel for the AK-12 Elite bipod long barrel. So this gives you plus 5 meters in range, so you're doing max damage up to 35 meters now at the cost of accuracy and handling, but not too much of a big deal here. Then we're going to calibrate this with plus 50 grams to get extra firing stability. For the muzzle device, so I chose to go with the Sandstorm vertical compensator to correct some of that vertical recoil. Now you can see it's getting a little bit worse in terms of horizontal recoil, but we're going to fix that as well. With the foregrip here, we're going to go with the Secret Order bevel foregrip to correct some of that horizontal recoil here. As you can see, it's getting a lot better. So install that, and then we're going to calibrate this with plus 20 grams to get even further control. As for the mag, so you have a lot of options here. Now you could opt for the 75 round drum mag, but you get a lot of penalties, especially in handling. A little bit of control, a little bit of stability penalty here, but it's not crazy. I chose to go with the 45 round extended mag. You get a lot less penalty for handling and a little bit less of a penalty for stability. So I chose to go with this one. Overall, 45 rounds, you know, for the most part is fairly enough to deal with a good amount of enemies coming your way. But if you feel like it's not enough, 75 round drum might be the one for you. But I just chose to go with this one and obviously put the mag assist on here. For the rear grip, I chose to go with the Scorpio rear grip to get even further control to tame some of that vertical recoil. So install that and then calibrate this with plus 50 grams to get even further control. So looking at the recoil pattern here, you're going to see it's starting to get a lot easier and a lot shorter in terms of vertical. For the stock, I chose to go with the 416 stable stock to give us further control and a lot of stability. So you're going to see this weapon has basically zero aim punch when you're actually getting shot at the cost of some handling. So install that and then calibrate this with plus 50 grams and plus 4 slots to give us further control and further firing stability. For the charging handle, there's only one option here, but it gives you extra handling at no penalties. For the optic, I chose to go with the OKP7 simply because it fits the aesthetic of the gun, as it is a Russian weapon. This is a Russian sight, so install that, and then I just calibrated this with negative 20 millimeters in eye relief. So for these 4 slots here, I simply chose to equip the DD Python handguard panel to get some of that lost handling back, but you could put something else if you find the gun is lacking in other stats. Now this isn't going to be something that you're going to be using in like super CQB combat. I kind of built this in more of a longer range to medium range engagement type weapon. Could put a laser on here if you want to have that snappy ADS time when you're in those CQB engagements. I didn't put one on here, but again, that's just personal preference for how I wanted to play this build. So this weapon actually unlocks at level 22, so roughly halfway in your progression in Delta Force, and you're going to need to have the weapon leveled up to 68 in order to unlock the Elite bipod long barrel, so quite a bit into the progression of the specific weapon. If not, level 53 is enough to get you the Secret Order bevel foregrip, and then you can just use the other barrel until you get to level 68. If not, obviously, weapon XP cards are probably the easiest way to level this thing up. Now you're going to see this thing is an absolute laser beam at range, despite it still having some of that vertical recoil. It is really easy to control, especially when you're holding your breath. This thing just becomes so easy to fire, it's not even funny, considering that you have the Sandstorm vertical compensator on here, as well as the Secret Order bevel foregrip. The camera firing stability is really nice. Like, it's not jumping all over the place, your sight picture is not bouncing, it is super straight and just makes keeping your aim on target that much easier at those longer ranges. And then couple that with obviously holding your breath, it just becomes like a beast at the longer range engagements. Now the AK-12 is part of the weapons that don't have a damage multiplier for the legs, so you're still doing 24 damage when you're firing at somebody in the legs, same damage to the chest, and then obviously the headshot multiplier, so it feels pretty consistent killing enemies across the board, unless of course you're getting those headshots mixed in which case it takes a lot less rounds to down an enemy. And overall, yeah, I was just having a blast with this freaking thing. As soon as I loaded up and like really dialed in the way I wanted to use this weapon, I was just getting beams upon beams at really decent ranges, and it felt so good to shoot. Now the handling is slightly abysmal, as is the accuracy for the hip fire. Could probably bump that up a little bit if you change the handguard panels a little bit, but as I said, I was using this weapon a little bit more in the longer range engagements, not so much in CQB, albeit I was still doing really well with it in CQB because it is an assault rifle, it does do decent damage, and it has a pretty decent fire rate as well compared to a lot of the other ARs, which are like sub 700 fire rate. This one's firing at 735 rounds per minute with 24 damage. Yeah, you're doing a lot of DPS. So overall, pleasantly surprised at how the AK-12 performs in Delta Force. I love the AK platforms, and like all the first-person shooters I play, I tend to, you know, slightly skew towards that weapon platform as opposed to like the HK weapon platform, the M4 or M16 weapon platforms, albeit I think those are the same, but I digress. Love the AK. I think it just has some of that flair that is very unique to the AK platform. As per usual, the weapon share code will be in the description down below, as well as in the top pinned comment. Let me know if you want me to work on any other weapon builds for upcoming videos. And now I'll leave you with a few highlight clips of me using this specific build. Hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and as always, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have a good one.